One Punch Man is back! One Punch! But holy shit, it's bad. And I'm not saying that just to be an ass. I mean, I loved season 1. I thought the show was different, it was fresh, it was interesting, I thought it was funny, and I thought that the animation was out of this world. So, what happened? Well, if you're not familiar with the whole One Punch Man drama, let me give you a little bit of backstory. One Punch Man Season 1 came out in 2015, and back then it was animated by Madhouse Studio, which is a powerhouse of the world of animation, with great shows like Hunter x Hunter, Death Note, and Hajime no Hippo, just to name a few. But despite the fact that Season 1 was a massive success, Madhouse Studio, as well as the director for Season 1, decided to not work on the show for Season 2 because they had other projects they wanted to work on. That's when JC Staff stepped in, and everything went to shit. The overall quality of the show took a huge hit, and especially the animation, triggering intense backlash from the fans, which in my opinion is pretty justified, especially since it took them 4 years to release Season 4. And now we're in 2025, 6 years after Season 2, and JC Staff is still in charge of the animation for One Punch Man. They just brought on board a new director called Shinpei Nagai, who's directed many different shows already, but none of them were actually huge successes. But what's really interesting about it is that it's been directing adult animation. And, well, I don't want to be judging people on their past, so I'm more than willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But he also said something on social media that really bothered me. Basically, his point was that fans should lower their expectations because JC Staff didn't have the same budget and the same talents available than Madhouse. So basically, Season 3 was never going to measure up to Season 1. I mean, what are we supposed to say to that? Are we just supposed to accept it?
Okay.
As much as I can accept someone trying really hard to do something great and failing in the end, it's really difficult for me to accept someone that's basically already giving up and saying that they're not even going to try. So now that you're somewhat up to speed with the One Punch Man drama, what about episode 1? Well, let's talk about it. First, the opening. If you remember, the opening for season 1 was something like... And for season 3 we have... It's not bad, but a lot less punchy than the opening for season 1. I know that it's not that big of a deal and most people skip it anyways, but I like to watch the opening at least one time when I start a new show. Next, we have a much bigger problem, which is the animation. They're using a lot of still frames and making them scroll through the screen to give the impression of movement. I don't have a problem with that technique, I think it's completely fine as long as you don't use it in excess and you add effects to breathe life into your shot. And that's something that Madhouse was really good at. Additionally, only a few objects are animated, and when they are, it feels like they're animated one by one. So everything feels really slow and unnatural, as if we were watching a PowerPoint presentation. Then the art is also not of very high quality. If you are going to be using a lot of still frames, then those frames better be looking fucking great to entertain the eye of the viewer, but instead, the lines are very simplistic and sometimes just wrong, and the shading also feels off. There's even a shot where they decided to not draw the room around Saitama. And finally, the story for episode 1. Well, it was just a little bit boring and not that funny. I haven't read the manga, so I can't tell if it was because of the source material or because it's a recap episode or something like that, but it was a lot of conversations between characters that we don't really care about and that are pretty much all saying the same thing. But regardless whether they were trying to be faithful to the source material or if they were trying to recap some of the events from season 2, you should have a first episode that's interesting, that's captivating, that makes you want to watch the rest of the season instead of dropping it. So far, things are looking really bleak for One Punch Man Season 3. I still hope that things will get better because I loved Season 1 so much, but I'm not gonna keep my hopes up. Let me know what you think of the whole One Punch Man situation in the comments below, and drop me a like or even consider subscribing if you enjoyed my video. This was Otakun. Arigato for watching, and matane!